This is some old footage that I hid on purpose for myself a year ago. Footage of a project that was made for collaboration with a poet, organized by a now shut down arts organization. It was one of those projects that had time as its enemy, but also its friend. The always baffling phenomena of an artist's strict deadline allowing for higher levels of production and genius. Not to say that this print is by any means a work of genius, only that it went smoother than any other work I have done since being here in the city. For some greater context, my brief given by the organizers of the project was simple: make whatever you want. I was not instructed, as I was told participants in previous iterations of this project had been, to make a project in response to the words of a poet, but rather was given the free rein to challenge the poet with whatever I decided to give them. Contrary to the norm for me, when given no directed stimuli to work off of, I found the design process relatively simple. It was the start of July that I was accepted into the project, having spent the previous 6 months indoors contemplating life and the absurdity of the Albertan winter. I had a few ideas written in my ideas book that I could draw from for inspiration. I am in the habit, every few months, of having the odd, stirring imaginative experience that stays with me and festers. I find that to release my mind from the trapping of the idea, I have to make an artwork of some description with it in mind. Consciously, I know this is a very silly situation that is very much encouraged by my insistence on holding on to an arbitrary mental image, conjured usually during sleep, and making it my mental fetter until acted on in some creative way. It is really and truly absurd. But it is true that absurdity there is some form of limitation that acts to direct my practice, and also document in some chronological fashion a representation of my life at that current moment in time. The mental images on a somewhat regular basis become part of my dream series of prints, of which currently there are 6 editions of differing subject matter. The delving into the situations which caused the creation of these different prints is a topic for another video, but what I would say when looking at them is to see how it catalogues my mental state, as well as my artistic style, craft, and my competency through printmaking and through my design process. This work is called Dreams Number 6 Winter Visits. As the title states, it is part of the Dream series and is my attempt to create something personal that pays homages to some sort of surrealist thought, taking cues from the images conjured up in my unconscious state. The images were created with a goal of approaching the subject matter as well as perspective in the imagery in a new way for my practice. Thing that I was trying to do and I'm relatively happy with in terms of achievement was to look at how the eye perceives things. For example, when focusing on an object on a desk before you, let's say a rolled up manuscript of Edgar Allan Poe's A Cask of Amontillado, for instance, the eye, or at least my eye, tends to see the piece of paper in detail, and everything else is just shapes of color denoting the presence of these objects in the space. I don't know, a bone folder, a nail clipper, a piece of pizza, or something like that. Conventionally, I would have wanted to render all these objects with the same level of detail, but that's not really how the eye sees things. Now, I know the artists amongst you will say, but isn't that obvious, you know? But for me, it was a very, not groundbreaking realization, but definitely an eye-opener, pun intended. The subject matter also played around with this idea, having the outside, everything around the subject being in a somewhat more abstracted form as comparatively to the subject itself, made for the imagery to have a somewhat dreamlike, unnatural way of looking at it. But in some ways, it's also very natural considering how the eye looks at things. I will say about the subject matter, in terms of my choice of using the body as the main subject of the work, what I will say is that in the process, I was thinking a lot about personification and what it means to represent the intangible and intangible things in a visual space. The body and its aspects is something that carries with it much meaning and symbolism in all cultures and in all forms of art, especially Western art. So I would be interested really in seeing how people understand the work rather than me opining about it. What I would say is that, as with much of my other work, I tend to really look forward to the interpretations given by the viewer, more so than the interpretations given by myself, because that is where the conversation really lies. For those of you who are interested in what the poet, the most capable Bret Crowle, wrote about the work after seeing it, I would encourage you to ask her, as that is her own form of expression that I really can't do justice to. And leave it up to her to let you know or not let you know, depending on what she feels like.